the topic for my talk is choose yourself in the world with many expectations. And while you were talking about this technology called the brain, I'm going to be talking about the full technology in which the brain is housed, about this whole self of being, including the brain, the soul, and the body, and how you choose that. So I'm going to kick off by asking a couple of questions, and with these questions, I hope that you keep them at the back of your mind throughout my talk. And it's really about the questions around if you've lost touch with who you are, right? Because many times we adapt and we conform to a point where we lose the sense of who we are. So have you ever been in a position where you are doing things that fundamentally don't feel right for you? Do you often compromise the core of your being because you feel the need to please people or to fit in? Have you ever felt the internal disconnect between what you are doing and what you are feeling? Because if the disconnect is there, you will always feel it. And it doesn't matter how much you try and fight it, but it's always there. Do you often feel overwhelmed by others' expectations of you? And no matter how you try to explain, you just don't feel heard. You feel that your voice is not being heard. Do you sometimes feel like, do you sometimes feel like something deep inside of you is missing? We go around with life and we do so many amazing things, and we gain accolades and we get credited for many beautiful work that we do. But sometimes you get to a point where I've achieved all these things and so many things, but I still feel that there's a gap. There's something that's missing and I'm not sure what it is. So we're going to try and get to that in the short space of time that we have. The reality is that the world is full of expectations. So sometimes we feel so overwhelmed because there's expectations from that one, from that one, from that one, from our families, from society, from our workplaces, from clients, from friends, and everybody that we engage with. And with these expectations, it can be overwhelming, and you get to a point where you're not sure where to go and what to do. And frankly, some of these expectations, to be honest, are just absurd. They're absurd because sometimes, and more often than not, these expectations ask of us to compromise the very essence of who we are. And I'm not talking about, our moral obligation. I'm not talking about, the usual ethical things like good and bad and you do not kill and stealing and all of that. I'm not talking about those things. I'm just talking about, the expectations of, how to speak, how to behave, following trends that are there, following certain traditions, that have been passed by families, that you are obliged without your thinking, without how you feel about them, without how they sit and well with you. You're just obliged to follow these things blindly and do things according to the expectations of society and others. And I would say that this is aligned to the concept of social influence. Now, according to psychology, social influence refers to the way in which individuals change their ideas and actions to meet the demands of the social group or the perceived authority, social role, or a minority within a group applying influence over the majority. So it's that influence in which you change your behaviors to adopt and adapt to the ideas to meet the demands thereof others. So that's the social influence. And I think we can all agree in the times that we live in now, in the ages of social media and everything else, that this influence, if it finds you in a space where you're not grounded, where you're not rooted, then it can totally mess you up. It can actually, get to a point where it influences more. So the question then becomes, how do you choose yourself amidst all of these expectations and the social influence that I'm talking about? As this person on this picture, it's like this immense pressure that is on top of that. It comes in all shapes and sizes. These expectations that you're miraculously expected to fulfill and meet irrespective of how you are feeling, how the extent to which they are actually aligned to who you are and the essence of who you are. So then I think the answer with this lies within yourself and asking the important question of who am I? In my coaching practice, I ask my clients this question quite often, and I never expect them to answer on the spot because it's a very difficult question to answer, and it requires one to actually think and ponder about a lot of things in their lives. But the immediate reaction that I get when I ask this question, it's anything from tears to, looking at me in a funny way, or eyes opening and a shock of like, did you really ask me that question? But I think also the realization that it's actually a question that most of us never really ask, or never stop to think about. But I think the answer lies within that. What are your values, principle, and what anchors you? What grounds you? What roots you? What are you about? And what do you need or what do you want in your life? Have you thought about all those things that you need that sustains that sustains you, the core of you? What makes you happy? Right? And then we get from those questions and on those understanding to a deeper level of how do you create meaning? Right? I like this philosopher Viktor Frankl that we all know did a lot of work around meaning. Somebody who spent a lot of time in the concentration camps derived meaning from his very unfortunate situation. And I love this quote where he says, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And this is what's from his book, A Man's Search for Meaning. And I love the word choose from there because I think the ability and the freedom to have choice is what I thrive in. And a lot of the times expectations take away from this choice and puts it in a place where we have to like just operate with tiny little bit of choice and do everything else that is expected of us. So that's what I like. And I think as you start to unpack who are you and get a main meaning from what you're about in your life, then you'll start getting to a place maybe where you can start saying, hey, I can actually choose myself amidst all of these expectations. But again, for me, answering this question provides the opportunity to reconnect with your inner being. And we all know that that's not an easy thing. Neither is it an overnight thing or a quick thing to answer. It is a journey. It is a personal journey that requires consciousness and commitment to it because it's a lifelong journey. It's a journey where you're continuously unraveling things about yourself in different situations. Let's say COVID, for example. COVID threw a lot of us off where we like there's certain areas or layers of us that we didn't even know existed. And so we went through another journey through COVID where we had to find ourselves in that situation. So it's a journey that is long and one needs to be really committed to. So this then, if we're saying, who are you, and you're trying to answer in this question in the pursuit to choosing yourself, then you might stumble, what I call an authenticity deficit. And what I'm calling the authenticity deficit is the gap between who you truly are and your conformance to the misaligned expectations of others on you. And I'm calling it a conformance to the misaligned expectations because oftentimes, like I said earlier, these expectations are not aligned with you, with the core of your being. It's just expectations because people make assumptions about you. People think we grew up in the same house. So, hey, Thato, I can ask you to do this for me, right? But they don't know who I am. And if I haven't done that work myself, if I haven't walked the journey that I was just talking about to understand who I am and get to a point where I appreciate who I am, then I'm going to have this authenticity deficit for the longest time. And if you don't stand your ground, then you're automatically binding yourself to some contract that exists. It's unspoken, unsigned, but it's some contract that exists that will say you will follow whatever that we are saying you must do. You will follow what we are setting out for you. And this will only bring feelings of unfulfillment. You feel excluded and you feel completely disempowered. And fulfillment is something that goes with authenticity. So I encourage then that you choose honesty and to be vulnerable, right? In a situation where you're being honest, to show up as a pear and you're not a pear, you're actually an apple, to choose honesty and vulnerability, because vulnerability is a strength. And as Brené Brown says and puts it, when we dare to drop the armor that protects us from feeling vulnerable, we then open ourselves to the experiences that bring purpose and meaning to our lives. And I know there's people that I coach even in this mini organizations where they feel that, I've got this position, I've got this title, I'm this leader, I cannot be seen as weak. And because they equate vulnerability to weakness, and that's what happens. Unfortunately, you denying the opportunity to unlock meaningful connections with others, but also to be understood, right? To be understood, to say, this is what I'm about, actually. And when we develop the courage to completely remove the armor, as Brené Brown puts it, we then firstly give ourselves permission to show up authentically and say, this is who I am. And then we allow meaningful connection with others, as I said, where you can boldly and respectfully say, I respect your way of doing things, as an example, but it's not aligned to who I am and what I'm about. And so I'm going to respectfully not participate in this, or decline your offer, or not go and do this, for example, whatever the issue or the case may be. But it's just giving you that permission to boldly step up, but also to allow for meaningful connection, because as you open up, then somebody might be feeling the same way, or it might be a reflection of where they are, and suddenly there's this connection that you are allowing for. So the task is simple and yet also, very difficult. Self-development work helps us to return back to our original selves before, social roles that we were given by society, before they were developed. And soon we stepped out into this, as soon as we stepped into this physical world. So it helped us to reconnect with our inner beings. So then let's talk about some of the things that is helping us to move towards our true selves and connect with ourselves. So firstly, I invite you to observe your thoughts. So we need to be mindful of what we're thinking about, the patterns. We need to start creating patterns in our thoughts, what they are and what they mean. Be aware of your thinking patterns. We need to be consciously and intentionally prioritize ourselves and our needs. It's okay to help people. It's okay to compromise, especially in relationships, any kind of relationships. It's okay, as long as it does not compromise on the very being of who you are. Find your voice, right? How do you truly feel about certain things? What is your view on certain things? So find your voice and use it. Speak up and stand your ground. As the foundation of any change, right? We need to use that, our voice, and standing up for voice as the foundation of any change. We want to change to truly owning ourselves, then we need to use our voice for that and be clear on what we want to accomplish. At the very end, then, you get to a point where you choose yourself. So choosing yourself is liberating. It's allowing either energy, positive energy to come in. It's allowing us to connect meaningfully with other people without compromising our being and who we are. But it's also allowing us to fall in love with ourselves again. Oftentimes we get into the habit of just doing things and we do not fall in love with who we are again. So it's really to take care of others. When we take care of others, you have to put in your oxygen. When you're flying and the air hostess are doing the safety demonstrations at the beginning, they always say that you need to put on your oxygen mask first before you can help others, including children. And that's exactly it. We need to fall in love with ourselves, truly appreciate ourselves before we can love others and extend this to others. And this is to help us also to not lose ourselves as we are doing this, and have clear, very clear and strong values. It starts with that, which is one of the things that I do a lot in my coaching practice. Also speaking up, as I said, you need to teach people who you are and how you would like to be treated. I think this is an important thing. Oftentimes you're like, I was mistreated, or my colleagues, people are not treating me. But have you ever like helped them to like demonstrate how you want to be treated? Because also, if you're not stable and grounded, and sometimes you're yellow, sometimes you're green, people are confused in who you are and what you want. So if you're consistent, the minute you invest in yourself and you become grounded and consistent, it's easier then for people to say, aha, she's like that and she's consistent with everyone. It's not just with this group or this certain, people. And then it's easy for people then say, this is how we treat them. And then it's easy to choose yourself. Stand up your power, stand to your power. And if that's what it takes, stand up to power as well. Make your boundaries known and clear. I think we need to create healthy boundaries around it with our families, with our friends, with the people that we work with. Healthy boundaries is with respect. It's understanding that in the relationships we're trying to build and create meaningful things and collaborate, but there needs to be healthy boundaries so that people can have meaningful working relationships and can do things amicably. Also, another thing you can do is free yourself from conformity. When you take ownership of your life, other people feel empowered to follow suit. I think that's what happens when you take ownership of your life. Do not rent out the responsibility on your life. Take full ownership of it, flaws and all. I think that's what brings so much joy. And don't judge others, because by learning to be more compassionate towards yourself, not only will you ease your own expectations, but you also won't feel the need to judge others. You will accept people as they are because you're confident in your own skin, and you allowed yourself to love yourself with flaws and all, and you understand that you're a work in progress and you're consistently doing work with yourself. So if you had answered, and as I close, if you remember the questions that I asked at the very beginning, if you had answered yes to one or more of the questions on the first slide, then the following questions might actually help you to boldly start choosing yourself in this world with full of expectations. And so the questions are, what am I most happy about in my life right now? And these are the things that we often don't sit and think about. What am I most happy about? What am I grateful for? What am I most excited about in my life right now? What am I most proud about in my life right now? And what am I most enjoying in my life right now? What do I enjoy? What do I thoroughly lose myself in and enjoy? And what am I committed to doing in my life right now? As you think about the legacy that you want to build, right? If you think about how you want to be remembered when you're no longer here, how are you then choosing yourself? Thank you. Thank you.